Hello, guys. So last week I uploaded a video with Phosphorus playing in Titans League Silver, and I went through the whole series, broke it down, talked about the maps, talked about the civs, and then showed the epic plays in kind of a condensed format. And the feedback was awesome. There were lots of comments, lots of likes, and people seemed to really enjoy it everywhere. So I wanted to do the exact same thing for the second round. Oh, and real quick, I hate to be this guy, but if you didn't see the OG one, this one isn't going to make quite as much sense because you got to see the first round to know kind of some of the implications of the second rounds. Okay, so we're here now looking at the map draft. Again, just to briefly go through the order, you get two bans, and then it is picks, and then it is bans until one more map is remaining. And naturally, the opponent's going to understand the type of maps that Phosphor is going to want is more of an open map. In this case, the opponent for Phosphor is a 2K5 player from Argentina named Deeker. So we got Deeker on the left, we got Phosphor on the right, and pretty much Phosphor did the same thing as last time. He banned out Migration because it has a bunch of water. Then the picks come through. He goes for Graveyards. Deeker goes for Hideout and Socotra, which is interesting because Hideout is more of a wallable map, not something I would typically say is good for Deeker. Maybe it's not so good for Phosphor, though. And then we also have Socotra, which is very close quarters. That could be fun. And then lastly, we had Land Madness there for Red Foss. Now, after all the bans, the neutral map is actually another map with walls, which is a wall. Which is interesting because through these bans, Phosphor would have had a final two. He banned Spiral and he banned Coast to Mountain. Notice those maps have some water. Notice the bans here from Deeker. He banned something like Golden Pit, which is just primarily land. Okay, and now the Civ draft is obviously the most important thing here. The spacing kind of sucks. That's still fine, Hardy. You don't really need to edit it. So, I found this hugely fascinating. So it starts off with the bans. You're going to see the traditional bans from Red Foss that he did last time. He banned out Mongols, Georgians, and he actually banned out Britons, which I thought was interesting. I can touch more on that later. And then Deeker banned out Spanish, Burmese, and Bengalis. All good civilizations for the strategy from Phosphor. All that kind of makes sense for me. Now, the very first pick is going to go to Deeker, and then it goes 2, and then 2, and back and forth, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, right? So the first pick, Deeker picks Portuguese. Thought it was very smart because this is a good overall civilization, which you can play very well, but also a civilization that Phosphor likes to play. So it is picking and also stealing a civ. And then Phosphor ends up going with Romans, ends up going with Malay. I figured that maybe he picked Chinese because same deal. Like maybe he's trying to take that from his opponent. Like he was trying to play the same game. And then ends up getting Hindustanis, Vikings, and Celts. Deeker ended up, again, picking Bohemians, a civilization that is very Phosphor-esque. But then also picking the Teutons, which could be good against some of the monk plays. But as you go through, like, Malians, Turks, Portuguese, Bohemians. Those 4 civs are all civilizations Phosphor likes to play himself. The civs on Phosphor's draft that I've seen him play a lot, Romans, Malay, Hindustanis, and I've seen a fair amount of the Vikings and the Celts. Okay, so we make it in then to game number 1. So same as before, we're going to kind of breeze through the whole series and go for an overview. But the map is Zawal. This is the neutral map. And this map has a neutral wall through the middle that does not belong to either player. And so typically, you break a hole in this wall, you are creating an opening for yourself to run through and your enemy. So if you're going to break a hole through this wall, you're usually going to be very aggressive. And what does Phosphor go for? He goes for the Celts. So immediately you're thinking, if it's the Phosphor build, he's probably going to be going for the siege. If you remember, he did the exact same thing on Fractal in the first game. That's the thing about Phosphor, somewhat predictable, but even if you predict it, can you stop it? So he's playing as the Celts, and then Deeker, who's the big favorite in this one, is playing as the Bohemians. Now, as they build up here, you can think about the tech tree in terms of the late game all you want, with Bohemians and the chemistry in Castle Age and bombard cannons and hand cannons. All these things are great against Celts. But you can't really think about games that way when you're playing up against Phosphor, can you? You got to think about stopping him early. And so I think kind of the mistake that Thunderbolt, who played Phosphor in the previous round, made was, and granted it was a different map, But I think the nerves were high. It was a big moment. You could just tell, like, oh my goodness, it's Titans League. This is my opportunity. And there was a lot of fear when being up against Phoshoru. So there was a lot of, like, crazy aggression, and there wasn't a lot of patience. Right? Deeker, he's a player who's 2,500 elo. Who's typically quite patient. More of a player who's happy to sit back. And he also has played Phosphor a lot on the ladder. So he is pretty familiar with him. He's gone with the Bohemians. And you just always have to think when you're playing Phosphor, okay, how is he going to pressure? And when you think you know that, you have to think about the most efficient ways to stop that pressure. And so with Bohemians, you're pretty much thinking monks. Like lots of monks to convert everything that he sends forward. So, Phosphor is going up. I mean, I just can't really believe these builds. It's absolutely insane. The reason he's able to get away with it is because, first off, the builds are pretty well labbed out. But also, he does idle the TC a little bit, right? So, most players are never going to idle their TCs. They always want more vills. In Phosphor's case, he understands that villagers are long-term. And if the opponent is simply dead, those villagers are not necessarily going to do too much. So, he clicks up, he sells his stone, and he's going to send a bunch of vills to wood. He's going to send a bunch of vills to gold, and the pressure is coming here in round 2 TTL. You have to win 3 rounds to be in Gold League, so whoever wins here is still going to have another round where it's going to be really intense action. The Phosphor was never expected even to win the first round. Thank you guys, by the way, for all the great feedback on the format the first time around. And I don't know if I'll be able to do this with a lot of sets for the next month or so, but I think this format, breaking down the draft, talking about strategy, and kind of zooming through some games, I think it has some promise. So Deeker, he's up. And look at how he's playing this here. He knows there's going to be some pressure. There's the double siege workshop from Phosphor. And unlike the prior opponent of Phosphor who wants to rush out and try and stop him, he's just kind of keeping an eye. What's going on? You got to allow him to come forward. You got to give him some ground. Then he sees the double siege workshop. Now, I think that's completely fine for Phosphor. I don't think you actually have to hide it. Your opponent probably already knows what's coming anyways. And we'll slow it down here, but Phosphor is through already with his Ram and with his Scorpions, and he is on the way. Now, remember, 0 eco upgrades for Phosphor, 0 villagers. So if you kill his armies, eventually it just falls completely flat. And now I'm going to slow it down. So Phosphor, he's just now bringing his scout through. So this is what he sees, and he's waiting for that TC. Like, he wants to push this immediately, right? He does actually see a house foundation. But then Deeker places a new house foundation. And Deeker knew the pressure was coming. Fully stonewalled up behind. Fully housewalled on this side. And is also producing vills. So he's adding more eco than his opponent. And he's got the mangonels to try and counter the scorpions. Now, I was watching this. And I'm already thinking, this is just so utterly completely over. And then you're quickly reminded, okay, that's a lot of scorpions. That's a lot of scorpions right there. And look at him click. Like, he doesn't care, dude. He doesn't care about your TC fire. And the thing is, his micro is pretty good as well. Maybe jinxed him, but he's not going to hesitate to do some split micro with scorpions. But what's the KD? 4-1 for Deeker. He did lose a mangonel. And he doesn't actually have food income right now. So he has no farms, can't produce vills. But what he does have is he does have a lot on wood with the wood upgrade. And he does have a lot on gold. And these Bohemians. Bohemians get that gold pretty quick. So, stressful times. The pressure continues here from Phosphor as he has to break the TC. And they trade 1-for-1 with the mangonels. We have Redemption now on the way from Deeker, who hops out and kills the Repairville. Now also kills the Scorpion and needs the repairs. And Phosphor knows this is bad, so he stays underneath the TC, and he actually kills the Mangonel. This is nuts! He's rolling underneath the TC. He is in But now redemption is in, and 2 of the scorpions have been converted. There's a ram remaining. Now there's the mangonel. So the mangonel is going to go down, and Phoshoru calls the GG. So he created, like, I don't know, 2 mangonels, maybe 1 mangonel, 2 rams, couple scorpions, and the game ends. And so, been saying it with a lot of the videos when I cover Phoshoru. The aggression's insane. What you can't do is play a standard game. You do actually have to play this type of game if you're up against this. Go fast castle, cut some corners economically. But you have to have a little bit more economy. Just a little bit more, a little bit of additional resistance. And Deeker takes the first game under 20 minutes. And I thought he played this very well. The stone wall was very smart. He didn't have anything out in the front, nothing that could be rammed down. He had all of his buildings on the back. And he also added his own siege and also went for the monks quite early. So some people might say, well, why not go light cav? He doesn't have an eco for light cav. That's not what this is about. Red Phosphor is all about killing quickly. Well, not always, but at least in this instance, he's all about killing quickly, and it didn't work out. Okay, so here we are, game number 2. Now, in the first time Phosphor played, he lost the first game, and then he bounced back. Or am I wrong? Actually, I think I'm wrong. I think he won the first game, lost the second game, bounced back game 3, then won game 4. Anyways, regardless, Phosphor, he's got a rebound here, and Graveyards is a map he'll be very comfortable with because it's similar to Arabia. And similar to his previous set, he's going to go forward and he's going to try and lame a little bit. He stole a lot of sheep in his first rounds. He goes forward, finds 2 sheep here. Almost feels like he was immediately satisfied with finding the 2 additional sheep because he'll know his opponent's never going to get more than him if he comes home to bring in his other resources. His boars are on the back. Those boars will probably never be stolen. And Deeker is over here on this side. And yeah, really open map. Typically what you would do on this map is go for scouts, is go for feudal age aggression. And we saw that from Thunderbolt against Phosphor in round 1. We'll see if Deeker is going to try that, because there's lots of reasons to try that. But Melee is one of Phosphor's best builds. I made a video on that, the Red Phosphor Melee edition. He really takes advantage of advancing faster to the next stage. You could squeak out a couple more vills. And his plan is Karambits and more ram. Sorry, just Karambits inside rams. I could have said that a little bit better. Castle near the woods possible. Castle near the gold. Castle even near the stone is possible. Jeez, I mean, this is just like a dream castle spot for Phosphor. And a dream start. I think any map with resistance, so the wall maps, maybe not the best for him. Any map with water is maybe not the best for him. If there wasn't that wall through the middle there, Deeker might not have had time in the first game, right? So, you might notice, Deeker is now going to stone. So, Deeker is not going to go for this crazy feudal age pressure. He's got the experience against Phosphor, and maybe similar to the first game. I mean, that map's always going to be a fast castle. But he's going to try something very similar to Phosphor here, which to me is just absolutely crazy. Like, win or lose, it is wild to me that the best way to beat Phosphor at the highest level is to accept your fate and go fast castle as well yourself and slightly outplay him economically, right? That's what Deeker's going to try and do. He also goes to stone. There's the stone miners from Phosphor at home. Phosphor has all this extra food. Such a good spot compared to Deeker. Deeker's down that food because of the lame. And Deeker just walks by the TC. Takes 3 HP of loss, but that's not a big deal. And Phosphor now goes forward. And Phosphor is going to see... Oh, actually, he didn't see the stone being mined. And he's going to look, and he's going to see the market. And he's going to see the blacksmith. And it's funny to me because Deeker is now phosphoruing Phoshoru. Yeah, now he sees the stone. Deeker sells off some stone and some wood, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go Castle Age 2. Now, what Phosphor typically does when someone else goes fast castle is he tries to go castle their TC. So he's got that option. He could also deviate his plan here. And notice, he's expecting a castle from Deeker. He's probably thinking that Gebetto in defense would be very good against Karambits, because Phosphor is very experienced with Gebetto himself. And so instead of doing that, he's going to change his strategy entirely. And he's shifting everything to gold. Now, Deeker walks through. Let's actually slow it down. Deeker walks through. He doesn't see the Vils on stone anymore. And then he sees he sees a lot of Vils on gold. So he's probably like, that's interesting. And now Deeker... because, like, guys, this is insane. Like, it's all crazy mind games, right? So Deeker's like, okay, you're not on stone. Hold on a second. And so he's going to bring Vils forward now. I think initially he actually, I don't know. I mean, based on his uptime, it wasn't like he was going to build the castle in the front of his base. But the scout goes through. He clearly knows it's not going to be a castle play from Phosphoru anymore. And now the Vils are walking forward from him. Phosphoru's scout, by the way, is just hanging around, not really doing too much. He arrives to castle. And what's his plan with this? Well, he's going to try and go monks. You see him fall back to monks a lot. Everything on gold usually is just going to mean monks, right? And he's hoping monks against Gebetto with the slightly better economy. And at least with his melee build, he can add a lot. He can get some food eco out as well. So, here's Phosphoru's position. Phosphor assumes there's a defensive castle. He can't go offensive because his opponent's going to go offensive. And now Deeker is here with Vils. And all hell's going to break loose because Deeker's going to drop a castle right there. Now, Phosphor could see this, but if the walls go down, there's actually not much he could really do about it. And Phosphoru is now getting a taste of his own medicine. And boy, is it bitter. Lots of panic here for Phosphoru because this monastery needs to send the monks away before the monastery goes down. But Phosphoru just lost his scout. So he can't actually hop out with the monk, because doing so means the monk dies. He now can't take this gold. He's mainly going to be on this gold. But he is going to make some more monks behind this. Gebetto are on the way for Deeker. We'll see how much they actually accomplish. And back at home, important to note that Deeker's economy isn't necessarily fantastic. His wood economy is now forward. And the Gebetto could be converted here. But just the mind games are absolutely ridiculous. Monk pops out. Deeker expected that. Gets his scout to the hill. And Deeker loses the scout there. But he's going to take that trade because he can kill the monk. But yeah, it's just so wild how, like, Phosphoru's strategy is expected. The opponent's going to go defensive castle. Then Phosphoru sees it's going to be defensive castle. So then he changes his strategy. And then Deeker realizes he's changing his strategy. So he just castles him instead. It's like this crazy coin flippy guess game, mind game. But so far, Phosphoru has not killed a single unit. And you got to remember, this is a tournament scenario. This is the first tournament Phosphoru's ever played in. This is high pressure. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. We just saw some monks. Like, I think he set the waypoint back here. Yeah, I can tell you what he did was he selected his monasteries. He set the waypoint from this monastery here. And so his monks would have to path that way. So that's the second monk that he's lost to the castle. But you know the saying, like, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. And normally Phosphor is the one doing the punching. At the moment, this continues to be a bit of an issue for him. And Deeker about to have a little bit of fun. A little bit of Phosphoru throwback action as well as you see a siege tower queued up. And Deeker snipes the monk. Deeker snipes the Vils. Deeker's gonna... He knows that monk is still chasing, so he's just gonna back away. And Phosphoru just cannot keep up with the Gebetto right now. There he goes for conversion. He will get it. But he's gonna lose another monk. And he taps out because he knows he's gonna lose all the Vils. So, first game was under 20 minutes. This game also under 20 minutes. And props to Deeker. I mean, he had a decent enough eco to keep some Vils pumping every now and then. But he had a lot of pressure in this game after having a lot of defense in the first game. And just Phosphor hasn't been able to get going yet. But notice, like, I guess a forward castle isn't necessarily seen as necessarily like calm, but Deeker has not even toyed with the idea of feudal age pressure. He's like, no, that's what his whole build is designed to beat. He's ready for that. We're going to head to Castle Age and adapt from there. So very quickly, poor Phoshoru is down 2-0 here, but he's still got a home map and he's still got some interesting civs available. Okay, so at this stage, Phoshoru needs to get 3 wins to win the series. Now, I haven't talked to him specifically about this, but oftentimes you're thinking, I've got to save this civilization or that civilization for the potential game 4, game 5. So he goes a little bit deeper into his draft, a little bit later down with his picks and goes for Vikings. And he's gone with Vikings and Berserks and Rams very frequently to, unranked games. Now, Deeker has gone for the Turks. Now, are you noticing a theme here? Every single one of Deeker's civilizations is a civilization that's pretty good on the fast castle. We had the Bohemians for the monks and the gold mining bonuses. We then had the Malians for... Well, Malians are kind of good with everything, but we at least saw Gebeto there. And now we've got the Turks. And Turks, pretty good if they can get a castle down as well. A Phosphor trying to lame. Yet again here, he did steal some sheep at the start of the previous game. And he goes forward. He'll find these sheep. But Deeker's also going to find that the sheep have been found. So Deeker might be able to get these back. And Phosphor is just going to do what he can to gain an edge here. The villager comes out from Deeker. He's getting some blocks off here, and he wants to steal the sheep. But I think those sheep should just be killed now. Yeah, what Phosphor could do there is he could actually attack and kill the sheep. Back at home, Phosphor brought in a boar. Not the cleanest boar lore ever, but he was very distracted. And now we're going to have Deeker do the same, and Deeker gets his sheep. So, when you're both playing fast castle, like, think about it in terms of arena, right? How many times have you seen an arena cast where I'm just like, I don't know what this civilization does here? That's usually when it's random civ. You're comparing castle age options if it turns into games like these. You're not necessarily comparing, like, tiny little feudal bonuses that play out over time when you're playing against Phosphor. Now, the beauty of being Deeker now is you have a little bit of momentum. So the confidence is there. And so he looked fairly confident in the early games. Like, it didn't seem like there was any huge worry. And so until he gets shown otherwise, he's probably going to try some type of fast castle play. And I would guess that the strategy revolves around going for Janissaries. Because Phosphor, if he's not going for a unique unit, he's going for siege and monks. Vikings don't have very good siege and monks. At least there's no, like, castle age bonuses. So this is where my brain's at. And mind you, I didn't actually watch this game. I, of course, know the results, but I do not actually know how this game ended. So I'm thinking... And this is how your brain has to work when you're playing against Phosphor. The opponent's going to go fast castle Janissary, most likely. I don't see many good options there for the Vikings. Would feel like a game that's maybe doable for Phosphor if he drops the castle on Deeker's face. Because if the castle is on Deeker's TC, or the castle goes up before Deeker can get Janissaries, then at least it gives Phosphor a bit of an eco advantage. And actually, there's a world where Phosphor could go, like, Rams, Berserks. I've actually seen him go Rams and Berserks. Push down the, push down castles. Defensive castle then means you have a lot of time to travel across the map with infantry. Becomes kind of a tricky scenario. So I would guess right now, especially being down a game, that Phosphor is going to try some type of forward castle. Deeker's just pushing in his deer. There's actually deer all over this map, by the way, so you could look at different corners of the map and you're going to find more deer. It's actually great for Phosphor because even in ranked Arabia, he's always pushing an additional deer. But he's going to stick to his build, and he's going to head over to stone. So be curious to see Deeker's build on this one, because in the previous game, he went forward castle after realizing that Phosphor was going to go full monks. So he decided at least where his castle was going to be based on scouting. And that's Phosphor will not scout his opponent until he's in feudal. He doesn't want to lose that scout. Phosphor is going to go up to 24 Vils. It feels like he could... Oh, nope, he canceled one. So normally his build is 23 Vils plus Loom. And it's just fast enough where by the time feudal age pressure hits from the opponent, he's going to have Loom. And he should be able to adapt to it. So it's all kind of part of that core build. You could do it with a lot of different civs, but then it's like, what unique units, what siege, what monks are you going to have? And then you have to be able to control it, which is just... Listen, there's a reason a lot of people aren't playing like this guy. Like, there have been some people who've taken some inspiration. I've showed some examples of that. But it is a really unique way of playing. And you have to play like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of games this way to really get a feel for all the intricacies, it feels like. So, all right, so 3 on stone. Over here, we've got 4 on stone. No villagers mining golds. The plan might be for Deeker to drop a castle near the golds and near the wood. And then if he needs the food, he could just buy the food for later on. He's pushing in his deer. Phosphor's pushing in his deer. They're doing the same thing. Deeker's is like, it's like his twin brother over here. If I were to remove the names right now, you would have no indicators to really tell you who was who. This is funny. There's the market. There's the blacksmith. And Phosphoru, I guess, got Loom. Deeker also didn't get Loom. He skipped that. Because that's also something I always skip versus Phosphoru because he's rarely aggressive in feudal. The only time his scout's going to show up to my base is like right when he makes it to feudal. So you can always skip it in Dark Age. But if you're Phosphoru and you're up against players who play standard, you kind of have to respect that the aggression's going to come in. There's the market. There's the blacksmith. Okay, now we need to see the scouting and adaptations. So this is kind of on Phosphoru. He's down 2 games. The Turks are going to have no issues with the defensive castle. Deeker still hasn't even left his base. And he's going to push in this deer, get as much food as possible. Phosphoru's up. Deeker should get enough to drop a castle, and then he can abandon the stone. And here comes Phosphoru. He'll know that Deeker's fast castle as well. He does not even need to see the stone to know that it's going to be Janissaries, most likely. But I think seeing the positioning of things is key. And so he goes through. There's the deer. He sees the opponent's scout. He now sees the stone. Okay, so everything's confirmed. You see a gold position. You see the wood position. Most likely with his own build, the castle would go up near there. And the TC's got to be here, right? What does Phosphoru do? I think I'd be worried that the opponent would build a castle before me. What's Deeker's plan? Deeker's now scouting. He's in the dark. Deeker's just chilling next to the berries. I think waiting for Castle Age. Deeker's scouting to see what's Phosphoru going to do. Ooh, we see some fills. Did he have plans there? What's the plan? Is he going to go forward castle on me? Where is he taking resources? What are we doing here? But Phosphoru would have to send his vills now to get a forward castle. Timing's not going to work. But we do have this vill. So he's headed out this way with something. Villagers on berries now. So it feels like Phosphoru going to make a couple vills. Obviously would need the food if he's going to make berserks. And here goes Deeker. So Deeker says, I'll drop the castle here. It'll protect the berries. And then it protects the gold. Phosphoru now comes through. Phosphoru is going to see and be like, hey, I know what this build order is. What is that crap? That's my build. You stole my build, bro. Sneakville's still up here. Deeker has no clue about that. And Deeker's still kind of wondering what's going on. Phosphoru isn't actually building a castle in an area that protects any gold. So I think his plan is probably just to sell off stone temporarily. And there is his siege workshop up on the hill. Quite bold. And now we've got Janissaries out. Great against infantry, so infantry is not really a great play against this. And now Deeker's like, oh, a castle. What does that do for me? Well, I'm going to tell you what the plan is. He wants berserks to get here and get into the rams. That's what he wants. So Deeker's going to move forward. Still looking around, wondering, like, there's no way he's actually doing this, right? But if the scouting's not on point against Phoshoru and you think you're fine, you can get caught off guard. Also, more villagers for Phoshoru right now. Okay, so there's the Vill. The Vill is coming home. How did those Janissaries miss the shot? How did they... Phoshoru might have a chance here because this is the worst gunman ever. Oh my god, all 3 of their volleys miss. And now Phoshoru knows I've got to lure these units away from my berserks. Notice what Deeker did, though. He's like, hold on, something's up. He researches Town Watch, and now he sees the Siege Workshop. So now he knows. And now he sees the berserks as well. So, I have seen Phoshoru fill infantry into rams, or fill up rams with infantry, and take down TCs in this scenario so many times. And Deeker has played against that himself. So now at home, drops the Siege Workshop. Notice, not really producing Vills. Kills off 2 berserks. Has the Siege Workshop now. And Phoshoru, it's feeling like it's going to be rams without any support at this point. And you kind of need the support. These Janissaries are cutting off the escape. Or I guess the attempt to get forward. And now we've got a Mangonel from Deeker. And he's got Phoshoru exactly where he wants him here. These units are positioned very nicely here. They just kind of park there. I think he just put them on stand ground. Because that's the direction the Berserks are likely going to run. Berserks do actually heal up over time. Yeah, Phoshoru trying to get in position here. And he knows that Siege Workshop is there as well. And he's probably like, oh no, you're kidding me. And these Berserks can't seem to make it. These Janissaries continue to get the hits. Deeker knows the exact line. He knows the exact plan. And he knows there's very little deviation from that plan possible. There's the Rams. And here we go for Phoshoru. He's aiming to just ram it all down. And it's crazy how strong the Rams can actually be. You're not expecting to see 4 Rams at this stage of the game. Where there's only 25 Vills for the opponent. The Rams actually fast enough to get in close to the Mangonels in some situations. But the Mangonel takes out that Ram. This Mangonel would have fallen back to the castle. Units here were still, doing some chip damage. And Phoshoru, he loses 3 very quick games where Deeker, his opponent, just simply accepted his play style and played it as well. So for Phoshoru fans, obviously disappointing, right? I'm sure he would have loved to see the miraculous run where he works his way through the whole bracket. But I find this all very interesting because I think it says a lot about Phoshoru's ability and the strategy he's came up with, that kind of the best way to beat it is kind of to join them in the fast castle. It also says a lot that, yeah, maybe the strategy is somewhat predictable. And if you know what's coming and you don't panic in the early game, good players can beat it. Now, Phoshoru, he said afterwards, that he felt he lost at the draft. And this is the first tournament he's ever played. So he was just like, I think the draft honestly screwed me over. And the draft was a really big deal here. Portuguese, Turks, Malians, picking civilizations that Phoshoru typically picks is like a ban in a way. And then if you could play them well, yeah, those are options that Phoshoru doesn't have available. And yeah, like my experience playing Phoshoru, and a lot of the times I've seen him, is like, you have to produce a few more villagers, have a little bit more eco, or just out-aggress him, right? What you're going to struggle with most likely is if you try and do damage in feudal age, or lots of damage in feudal age in a standard way. And so Thunderbolt, who lost the first round against Phoshoru, I think learned that lesson. And if Deeker saw those games, I think it was a very valuable lesson to just be able to see someone lose to it in a tournament and be like, okay, what are we doing here? We shouldn't be going feudal age aggression at all. We should just simply match it. Deeker has played against Phoshoru dozens of times on the ladder. Deeker is 2,500 plus, and Deeker is like the favorite in ELO big time. So it made sense that he was going to win this series. I personally take a lot of positives from this. I think it's really fun that Phoshoru even won a round. And I hope that Phoshoru signs up for more. The final point on this, which is kind of a cool aspect, is that Deeker's going to play on in Titans League Silver. Maybe he'll even qualify for gold. But he's a player who really has it all in terms of what a pro could do, right? We're talking like the water maps, the feudal age play, any map, he's going to be really overall very solid. And so in many ways, that gives him more options for the opponent to expect. And what I mean by that is like back to my Loom conversation. It's just one thing, but like Phosphoru has to get Loom before he goes up as part of his builds because their opponents are actually aggressive in a standard fashion in feudal age. Deeker never got Loom there until he was in feudal because he knows Phosphoru's not going to show up with anything. Just small things like that. Deeker did a great job. He well-rounded his game. He made sure he was ready for any of the pressure that came in. And he also has that other stuff in his bag of tricks. Dream world scenario is like Phosphoru could just switch into a scout rush, right? Like he could just switch into some type of other play to keep people on their toes. But realistically, with how he plays, with the level that he's now gotten to with this, I think that is like a year or two of experience. Who knows if that's something that suits him? And most likely, this is just a player who is always going to play this way, is going to have to find some ways to try and, beat these players who kind of match him and try and just outplay him with his own strategy. And that's going to be part of the story as we go. So a very quick series compared to the previous one. I still hope you guys enjoyed this. I will do this more with series reviews. I actually think it's super fun to talk about the drafts, to talk about the maps, because I don't know, I'm passionate about that stuff. And I think sometimes it is bigger than just one individual game. So I'll do it in the future if you guys still like it. Full transparency, this is hour 10 or 11 of recording on the day. I did 8 hours of streaming earlier for some other Titans League stuff, and I'm still recording videos for the next few weeks as the Christmas break arrives and whatnot. So if you did enjoy this, please like it. Please let me know that this full grind session and the grind session I'll do tomorrow to get the videos prepped is worth it. I enjoy making the videos, and I just want you guys to have the videos ready for when I'm gone on all my trips. So anyways, thank you. Videos coming. Lots of cool stuff. Lots of Phosphoru videos, actually. Phosphoru videos are kind of nice when you want lots of content because they're always a little, crazy. So there's always something, and they're also quite short at times. So anyways, I'll shut up. Thank you for watching. See you next time.